What's going on, y'all? Bud Elliott here of the Nolecast. That's Chuck Blunt. That's now Lawrence-Stample. And this, of course, is the Nolecast. I'm going to switch up some of the banner stuff that I should have done before we hit record. All right. Man, I'm just as prepared for this show as Florida State was to lose to Pitt yesterday, which they did, unfortunately. I mean, before we just go on absolute rant mode and forget to thank our sponsors, let's do thank the people who make this show possible. Obviously, legendary team. I think Chad is just as bummed as we all are that this program continues to just be an absolute cluster when it comes to, these conference games that apparently they think they're better than, but they just continue to show that they are not under Mike Norvell under year 6. So if you are similarly frustrated and you want the home loan process to not be as frustrating for you, I would give the 844 FSU loan number a call because I think Chad can walk you through it, do a great job with great rates, great customer service, and of course, a great Nole. Also want to make sure we hit up Congruity HR Solutions, anything you might need there from payroll, insurance, optimizing your business. Congruity is certainly worth a look. And I know if you follow the Matt Social Twitter account, you know how annoyed Matt and his team were with this team yesterday, and for good reason, right? Like these businesses invest a lot in it, obviously, and and they're proud boosters as well. And I mean, look, those crowds are going to kind of suck. I think you got a pretty good chance of getting a good seat at Madison Social. If it's me, I probably just hang out at Madso and watch our game and also some other games as opposed to going to the stadium right now to watch this trash ass product. So I would recommend you all do so as well. Also pick up some really cool merch. I think it's Matt. I mean, I'm not a great model, but this Madso hat makes me look at least like, 10 or 12% better than I actually do. So, all right, we're through the ad reads. Even when you took a lead into the half, it didn't really feel like super confident because you've seen this shit before.
Yeah. It was similar to Virginia, right? We one score lead. You go into the locker room. You're getting the ball coming out of the locker room with a chance to extend it and put a lot of game pressure on Pitt. And just like the Virginia game, the offense pissed away good field position and got nothing out of it. And now you're in a dogfight. And this team, whether it's a leadership thing or what, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know, but it's the same thing over again, right? This is Groundhog Day with Mike Norvell's teams, regardless of who's on the staff, regardless of who's on the roster. This is a reoccurring theme of his teams in these type of games, and I think that's where it's so frustrating. We basically laid it out of how you lose this game, and that's what happened. It's very predictable, and that's where the frustration lies for me, at least.
Yeah, there's no confidence in either side of the ball. They don't have confidence in each other, which sucks. You go into the half and you're thinking to yourself, well, we have to hold on because defense has not figured it out. We haven't. There's no rhyme or reason for really any of it. So as you go into the locker room, you're like, all right, so let's see if we can make any adjustments. But we all know no adjustments are being made, which is really disheartening. It sucks to think that the adjustments haven't been seen all season, and that it shows on the football field that we're having some issues in trust as far as the offense being able to trust their different weapons and just a bunch of different things. But there's got to be some more trust there if you want any team to do well. And it looks like this team is lacking it significantly, man.
Plus, they're just getting killed at the wide receiver position. I mean, yesterday was brutal, right? I mean, B.J. Gibson left in the program earlier in the week. Then you have 3 wide receiver, or what was it? 2, Squirrel and Boggs were already out. Deuce gets hurt. You already had a thin wide receiver unit to begin with in terms of what was actually probably playable in 2025. And most of them weren't even available in that second half. And I mean, Tommy played his ass off trying to make something happen. The offense was not the problem overall. I was disappointed they didn't score coming in the locker room, but I wouldn't put any of this actually on the offense. That defense is really bad. And it's bad in turn, 2009 bad when we had to score 40 points a game just to stay in ball games. That's what it feels like. They are giving up 31 points per game to Power 4 opponents. They're giving up 5.6 yards per play. For perspective, 5.6 yards per play would rank you about 78th in the country right now with the likes of Washington State. That's a really bad defense. We get there. It's probably not the perfect pieces for what Tony wants to do, but I think especially after you saw what they did to Alabama, because that's the outlier of the Power 4 games. They actually played really well. They allowed sub 5 yards per play in that game. And is it just that it was Ty Simpson's first road game? Is it that all that can come down to? Or is there something that's transpired and where they've lost buy-in maybe on the defense? Because they look completely lost and confused at all times from the Virginia game forward.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of team defense being played.
No.
And you don't see a lot of smart defense, being played. I do think it's like a coaching and a continuity issue. And I think there's a talent issue too, right? I like the pass rush, you don't have one. Like your pass rush is, at Georgia, at Auburn and Keldrick Falk. It's at these places because I just don't think you recruit hard enough as a staff. And I've said this for 6 years. It's tiring, right? Like I don't think Mike, like I was on CBS HQ yesterday with BMAC, and he's like, look, you're either giving him hell or asking for help. You're coaching it or you're allowing it. I think Mike allows it on his staff. I do not think he holds his coaches accountable for their amount of recruiting effort that like a Mario or a Napier or a Kirby does. I just don't. I'm not saying it's like full country club, but I guarantee those guys do not work as hard in recruiting. And I don't think he assembles his staff with the idea of skill in mind as a recruiter. And I think the staff is way too reliant on, hey, just be the highest bidder on these guys. And ultimately, that's a problem. And you could tell me, like, you can see some former players who were not good recruits, by the way, and don't know how the hell this works on Twitter saying, hey, just pay more money. That's not an efficient process to acquire talent. I guarantee you, because I see it every day, there are definitely staffs who get kids for cheaper than you do because they form good relationships. They make the kid want to come there.
It would also help if they actually develop some of these high school kids. Like
right.
That's the other, you have to pay a premium because you have nothing to sell on the trail right now. Because what is it? 2 kids that he actually recruited out of high school he has sent to the NFL to date? 2.
Yeah.
AZ Thomas
rate of
and Josh Farmer.
Yeah.
That's it. He's got over a 50% attrition rate of his high school kids because there is a reliance on the portal every single year. And you can argue that those kids weren't good enough for FSU, but they still probably should have gotten an opportunity to be groomed. And that's where I'm most frustrated. We never even see him. Yesterday was a prime example. You had a chance to play Lucas Simmons, and we don't get to see him at all. Like, that frustrates me that NIL is tied up in some of these high school kids. If you're not going to play them, process them. Get that money freed up to use somewhere else. Like, they're just not efficient in how they manage a roster in general.
Yeah,
but that comes with an admission that you missed.
Right.
You have Kent State. And so Kent State, where we played all these freshmen, East Texas, we play all these freshmen early in the season, and it almost seems like a mirage. Like we did it for show because it hasn't been playing into the actual season itself. And it's great to see them early in the season, but let's see it when it matters. Let's actually develop some of these guys to where we can see it. We're seeing it on the D line because we need to. Like we absolutely need to. So let's talk about this as like a talent standpoint. When you have top tier talent, it trickles down. So if I'm on the D line and I have a couple studs, I'm going to play up to those studs. I have to play up to them or else I can't get on the field. So if you don't have like top tier or at least really good talent that creates that like standard, that benchmark, it's very hard to say, okay, well, the rest of the guys have something to actually play up to when realistically the standard has been lowered. And now we're sitting here, we're like, all right, like we have some good players and they flash, but that consistency is demanded when there's multiple players that you are trying to fight to get playing time from. And unfortunately, the standard is not set. So, and that goes across the board. That's on offense and on defense. So the recruiting aspect bleeds into every single aspect of the game. So if we don't have that standard high when it comes to recruiting and bringing in guys that are elite, like really elite, and we do have some players on this roster that are very good, and some of them are elite if they can get developed. So it's like there are so many issues that it comes from the recruiting aspect to where there's no one to really say, hey, I don't have a choice but to wake up at 4:00 in the morning to go work out because X, Y, and Z are doing it. They're doing it because they have to do it because if they don't do it, X, Y, and Z is playing over them. So it all plays this into this massive role of like psychology and being able to get guys to be able to play at their absolute top tier level. And we're seeing it in real time, and it hurts.
There's also no accountability. I feel like guys don't get yanked out of the lineup from when they miss assignments.
Hey,
Or
Chuck, how do you yank somebody out of the lineup when there's no one else?
I think if he's going to loaf, though, somebody's going to loaf or not do their assignment, I think you have to send a message, because otherwise you're never going to get them to be accountable for their actions, right? And we saw that more last year than we have this year, but I think it's starting to rear its head again, where there are guys that aren't doing their job and they're still being allowed to play every single snap. That's a problem.
Agreed on every single snap, but there's not a lot of depth. Like,
no, there isn't. And that is part of the problem for sure. But I think I would still, there are options that we saw and that, like we talked about, we've seen in some of these other games where I think you sit a guy down like they did James Williams early in that Bama game. He was, too hyped up. They sat him down, they made him calm down, and they put him back in. He was actually functional in that game. They haven't really done that with anybody else throughout this 3-game losing streak. Guys are continuing to play over and over, and we keep hearing about alignment issues and, missed assignments and poor tackling, taking bad angles to make the tackle. Bench those guys. Send a message. If you're going to have poor tackling anyways, I'd rather a walk-on blow a tackle. At least he's probably going to try, and it will send a message down the lineup that we're sick of you guys making it's okay to make a mistake if you learn from it. But I feel like nobody's learning from the mistakes because there's no accountability. And it starts with the head man.
Yeah,
it does. He doesn't hold people accountable, and his assistants don't either. And that's a problem.
That's what same result. That's why we saw DJ play as long as he did.
Yeah.
I talked about it on my if anybody follows me on Nolan with Nile on my Instagram or anything else, I talked about it last year. As far as DJ played way too long, Jimbo would have yoked him out of that lineup or quicker than he could have batted an eye. He would have been out. But guess what? So same thing with our.
But like, didn't Jimbo do promissory notes?
Yes.
Like, I mean, Jimbo's team started like Jimbo hasn't been a good coach in a decade. Like, I mean, he sucked out loud at Texas A&M. That's a crazy amount of resources. And like his teams were quitting on him like well before the hurricane and the Blackman season. Like he made those guys sign promissory notes to play hard. Like that's freaking embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying he wouldn't have done it, but like
he also had 10-11 class left
to go to.
He had the same
problem in the walk on.
He had the same problem Norvell's had with the lack of actual leadership from his top players, because the 10-11 team held everybody accountable. Or the 10-11 classes held those 12, 13, and 14 teams accountable. And when Joyner and Christian Jones and Terrence Brooks and all those guys left the program, it wasn't the same. We didn't see the same accountability and leadership. That 13 and 14 class were thrown together and they looked good on paper, but they lacked leaders and they lacked high-end talent. And we saw it in 15, 16, and 17 on Jimbo's way out the door. They didn't have leadership, and they weren't what the standard was while Jimbo was on top and during his time in Tallahassee.
Yeah, it started fluttering away for sure. As far as but again, that talent as well. Yeah, we saw kind of a decrease in the talent. I hate to see something that is kind of steamrolling its way down and snowballing its way down without any real opportunity to fix it. That's the hardest part of what we're watching right now. And you kind of have to stick with Norvell because he's who we have at the moment. And I'm going to stick with him until he leaves. But how far down the rabbit hole are we going to go with this before we see some sort of reprieve, so that way we can start rebuilding this? Because it just doesn't look like we're seeing anything. It's all the same stuff. We're seeing the mistakes. We're seeing the fumbles. We're seeing a lot of the small things that great coaches fix. Mm-hmm. We're seeing them week in and week out, and we're seeing him hold himself accountable in these press conferences, but it's week in and week out. But let's talk about the game a little bit. I do want to talk about the game.
Yeah.
So this game was watching the defense and kind of come out. I was interested to see who would flash, who would be able to make some plays, who would be able to kind of like bring the defense, bring the juice. And we saw some interceptions, we saw some stuff, but there was nothing really consistent that anyone could hold on to. And when you see flash, you really want them, just like the Alabama game. It sucks that we have to go back to the Alabama game because that again talks about how erratic this season has been. You go back to the Alabama game and you see flashes from different people in different areas of the defensive scheme because that means that it's working. That means that you have to get your guys involved. We're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing guys hesitate. Guys aren't shooting the gap. Guys aren't making plays in the backfield. It is a almost wait. It's a conscientious type defensive scheme that we're seeing to where it's like, we'll wait and see what happens and we'll react then, which doesn't seem like what it is that he needs from his defense. They have to be on the attack. They have to be aggressive. And we're not seeing that. Really, no one on the field is being able to display that at the moment.
They also are just boom or bust, right? They had 5 sacks. They caused some disruption, but they always allow it to be a race because they give up so many explosive plays. Like Pitt, by the numbers, by the definition of an explosive play, I think Pitt had 10 total in the game, right? They had 10 total explosive plays, 6 were passing and 4 were rushing. So it's great you have 5 tackles for a loss, 5 sacks, and you generated some tackles for a loss, but it didn't ever seem to put Pitt in an adverse situation because all they would do is they'd find somebody in the middle of the field who would then get 40 yards a yak, or you'd blow a tackle, or your pass rushers would get too far up the field and you'd create natural rush lanes, and their 5'5", 40 quarterback would just run right by your guys. Like, it was bewildering that they were so boom or bust.
Zero consistency. That was concerning.
No, and it's some of the situational awareness stuff and lack thereof is kind of maddening. I'm kind of numb to it at this point a little bit. Like I don't think any of us thought they would blow Pitt out. I thought they would win like 33-31. But like some of these quarterback scrambles, they're calling a spy. I'm not sure, but I'm guessing that they have coached up the spy what to do, to y'all's point about like not doing your job. And you're in like a double mug look to kind of confuse the quarterback, which is like where you have the backers like right up there on the line of scrimmage over the center, which is cool. And for some reason, like they're trying to shoot the gap and go like get the TFL, which I get, but it's like 3rd and long. They're deep in their own territory. They're not really in safety range. There's not really any difference between stopping the guy on the 8 and stopping the guy on the 14. What you can't do is not retreat. Like you kind of want to bluff and bail in that situation to give yourself an angle to track this kid down. Like Nicholson is plenty fast enough to track down this quarterback if he doesn't screw himself with the angle. And like I think that wasn't that one of the drives they scored on?
Yes.
Like that shit was maddening. I was like, good God. Like just
you know the middle of the field. Let him run sideline.
You let a quarterback run for over 50 yards in aggregate, despite sacking him for negative 50 yards. Think about that. Like, and this guy isn't Michael Vick. Athlete. Yeah, he's not Michael Vick. Like, this dude runs a 5'5", 40. Like, he's not supposed to be mobile, and they just let him destroy him. It was bizarre.
Yeah, I think that was the 85-yard drive coming out of the half, right?
Yeah, after they good field position, they punted them, pinned them deep, and then they gave a big 3rd and long.
Yeah, so that was yes. Wait, is that the one? He's pretty deep in there, Okay, that was just freaking unreal, man. Honestly, that was
QB played well. He played well. He had a great game.
Yeah, hats off to Pitt. Like that's exactly what we expected out of Pitt, though. They played hard, and they made the plays they had to. And unfortunately, it was more than FSU made.
Yeah, but we made them look good. So as far as the offensive side of the ball, I know it really wasn't their fault, but at the same time, please tell me I'm crazy, but I love Mekhi Danzy. I think that he's a great player and he's going to do some good things. He's a kind of a sure catch. If you can get him, he's what I like is he has big hands and he's aggressive with them. Mm-hmm. That was one thing that KB did really well was KB was aggressive with his hands. So he wants to high point the ball and he's going to grab that thing out of the air. So that's one thing that I do see about Danzy. I like that.
I've enjoyed watching him grow because he played running back last year, right? So this is really new for him to run routes and have to catch balls in traffic and things. So I think you're seeing him grow right before your eyes. It's just a shame that it's getting wasted at times. Right?
My issue, why are we seeing Danzy on any screenplays? That's not his game. That's just
there's not a lot of wiggle.
There is no. He's a track star and he's
400 meters
in the 4x4, right? Wasn't it the 4x4?
He runs 400 solo. Like that's where his future is as potentially an Olympic sprinter. He's supposed to be one of the best in NCAAs for the 400.
I personally, can we put Jalen Lucas to run our screens? We've tried to get him some screens and they have not worked. They've been a little bit ineffective. We haven't been able to get him the ball. But as far as a pick up and go, you have two different type of people. You have a Jalen Lucas and then you have a Mekhi Danzy. Mekhi Danzy needs to be trying to take the top off the defense. That's what he can do.
He's faster than quick.
He's Ted Ginn. He reminds me of Ted Ginn. That's what I keep seeing every time I watch him play. OSU didn't run a bunch of screens with Ted Ginn. They said go beat somebody one-on-one.
Go beat him one-on-one.
Right, like blow the top off a defense, and that's where Danzy is most beneficial to this offense. Is doing that.
Not only that, he's had trouble being able to. He's young, so it makes sense. But when you have to catch those screens, you got to catch them and go. Yeah. Like you got to catch them and go. You have someone.
They're also not very good at blocking those screens.
That doesn't. When Lucas is out there, like Lucas really can't block.
Yeah. So, but it's a lot of pressure there in order to catch the ball in transition. And it seems like that's been somewhat of an issue for him, but he's doing obviously really well at being able to catch the deep ball. Why are we forcing screen? We forced like 3 or 4 to him that just weren't effective. Let's get Jalen Lucas in space. Let's have him be able to move because he's quicker. He could pick up and go. So that was one thing that was really frustrating to see them try to force that, even though I'm not Gus Malzahn, but I can see that Danzy is just not, that is not his skill set. Right. But that's what it is that we're trying to do. I understand getting him in open space. That's amazing. He needs to get going, just like those reverses that unfortunately have not worked since people have schemed them and are able to pick them up. But as far as on the offensive side of the ball, I really am happy that we were able to get Landon Thomas a little bit of action. What are your guys' thoughts on, obviously our wide receiver room is not the thickest. We don't have a lot of depth there, but I think it's like, so when you own a business and you have one client, it puts a lot of strain on your business. You don't want one client. You can't honestly ever have one client. And when you have one client, you do everything in your power to get multiple, or at least be able to cut back off that. That is what we did going into week 1, week 2, week 3. We allowed Tommy, the coaching staff allowed Tommy to pinpoint and almost focus on Deuce Robinson instead of being like, unfortunately, I love that you're using Deuce. I love that. We don't have a choice but to start utilizing other guys.
Well, it doesn't help that they're not healthy though, right? Like Squirrel not being around Squirrel not being around, I think they practice with in mind he's probably going to be available, and then all of a sudden he's not, right? Like
that's some of the risk, like of some of these guys you took. Like Tommy stays dinged up, man. Like Tommy doesn't look the same quickness like he looked week 1. No, Squirrel had a couple good games at Tennessee when he was healthy, but has stayed dinged.
This is how he was at Tennessee. He drops balls and he's hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is the first time we're targeting Landon Thomas, like legitimately.
Do you think Landon Thomas is like that good?
I think he's good. I think he has a lot of upside. He just needs.
I don't think he's anything special.
I think he's a tweener, and that's kind of the problem. He's not big enough to be an inline.
I don't think he's a piece you build around. To be honest,
he's not Brock Bowers.
I'm not real high on him.
Right? No, like that.
And I don't think he's special. I think he's a guy who grew early in high school and like kind of peaked, and like maybe he'll continue to get better. But like, I don't know. We'll see. He's not a guy I would build around.
Landon Thomas, when Pittman goes down and Deuce Robinson goes down, we're exposed.
Like I would like to see more of Elijah Moore. I thought I like what I've seen. Like I like that frame.
I agree. Yeah. It's okay. So in the wide receiver group, so it's obviously different. So you have on a defensive line, you're forced to be able to rotate guys in. So guys are even Kevin Wynn got in a little bit. You're able to utilize some of those younger players in order to make sure that if a injury does happen, they're ready to go. You're bringing them in because they're tired. That has to be the same thought process when it comes to using our wide receivers as well as our running backs. So that way, when there is a possible injury, they are ready. And it's not like, okay, well, it's your time to step up. But no, I've gotten some rotational stuff. I've been able to get in. I've been targeted. They've built plays around me so I can be targeted, so that this way it doesn't happen. This was a huge issue because we lost two of the only players that we've targeted almost all season, instead of being like, well, listen, Landon Thomas needs development when it comes to blocking. I will agree with that. But we haven't really given him much opportunities. So that way, when this was a possibility, it's just, I think it's great coaching. It's great coaching when it comes to being able to like slowly develop guys. So when the time does come, they are ready. Again, we do that on the defensive line. There's no reason for us not to be doing in other positions. Active.
I mean, look, I wonder how high they really are on him. Like, do you chase Biscuit that hard after he flirted, like with the portal again?
I mean, there's a reason Chase Lofton was the second behind Pittman, and then Douglas was your inline tight end for blocking purposes. Like, there's clearly something happening day in and day out at practice that they aren't high on Landon Thomas, right? Like, it has to be, because if he was making plays or doing the right things, play in and play out in practice, you would think he would have been more involved in this offense. We even didn't see him though that much against East Texas A&M and Kent State, which should have set off alarms for a lot of people that if he can't even get a lot of targets and play time in those games, what the hell is going on Monday through Friday? And that's where it's like, sometimes forced attrition is a good thing, especially when it costs your roster a lot of money. Like, I don't know that. Again, sometimes I feel like money has been spent on the wrong positions because you need the PR win in recruiting, but it doesn't actually make your team any better.
Man, you ain't never,
And that's the problem. There's too many.
But that's a very Malzahn tree thing. Like, Malzahn would do that at Auburn. They would take guys who were highly rated, who weren't like to get the image win, as opposed to guys that really maybe fit their system.
Right. It's frustrating,
because that's what you got to sell to fans and boosters sometimes.
I do want to call it. Chroma was a lot of fun. I love watching the
back,
kid
man.
run. Like, they got.
I don't want to see Keziah Holmes anymore.
No,
like, come on, dude. You cannot be fumbling there. That's crazy.
Yeah, he looked good though. He looked good.
He's like an 8th year senior. Like, I
thought he looked good. Obviously, the fumble sucks, especially when you get your opportunity. But I thought he did some good stuff. And same thing, he flashed the last time he got some burn. So,
yeah. All right. So, like, my friend Stephen Godfrey plays this, and Richard, they play like I think I know type game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to fire Mike right now. I don't know that. To Chuck's point earlier, it is, it's $53 million, but it's basically a line item in a budget through 2031. It's not, payable within 30 days, and that's a really, really big distinction to draw with universities. We've seen this quite a bit. That's part of the reason why Jimbo's was like so shocking to him that they would actually pull the trigger and do it, because there was a certain amount that was owed immediately. And, I think Napier has like half due within 30 days.
25. I think Andy Staples said was like 25% due within 30 days. And then it's a line item the rest of the time. And that's similar to what
Stoops is due. Right, like
Stoops is like 50 or 80% due, like up front at termination.
But also, like, do you want Mike Alford making the hire?
No, I'll be dead honest. No.
So I don't think I would fire Mike right now unless this gets like, if you go 5-7, if you're gonna have no season ticket renewals, like, you do root for a business ultimately.
That one,
like,
and
we don't cheer for the balance sheet, but like, the balance sheet does impact what you cheer for.
I think it's also important to note that they were in this same situation in 2022, and they had a very soft finish to the season, and they did go 9-3. Like, I don't think it's likely that they repeat what they did in 2022, but I also don't think you can make a decision right now, given that history exists. But if they go and lay an egg at Stanford this coming weekend, which is entirely possible because we've harped on this, it's a 10:30 kickoff on the West Coast. That's just asking for trouble with 18 to 22-year-olds. If they come home and they lose a game to Wake has been the nail in the coffin for a lot of FSU coaches along the way in our history. If you go get your ass kicked in Death Valley, given what Clemson has looked like this year, then I think they're going to have some serious conversations. I will call out, there is that money from the TV ratings, a part of this new uneven revenue distribution that could potentially provide a stream of cash you didn't anticipate having that could help you in this situation. So it's always something to keep in mind.
I will also say Mike Alford's comments about like the cap being real make Florida State a less attractive job, because I think he's a true believer in that, and coaches are not a true believer in that, and that's ridiculous. That like you would even think that would be something that would hold up at all. Like it's cool to give it lip service, but like if you actually believe that, that's a major problem. So now they have done a great job. Like they're throwing so much of their rev share at football. So like Florida State's not under-resourced. I mean, they have. I mean, there's. Hold on, let me check my math on this.
And we know they've always been top 10, top 12 in terms of what they pay for their staff.
I mean, they're spending 40% more than a couple of SEC schools for sure, just on the rev share side.
For sure.
So like they're not like, you know, I saw some of my former players on Twitter like, oh, like spend more money. You don't need to be spending more money to beat Pitt, right?
Yeah.
Like that like
that's not the problem.
You don't need to be spending more to beat Virginia, right?
Plus, the guy is 16 and 17 versus inferior ACC teams in terms of recruiting. Do we really want to give him more talent to watch him lose more games?
Yeah.
But I think I would keep loading the money cannon for one more year for two reasons. One, I do think you have some decent talent in the young ranks on this team. Not a ton, but like it's not zero. You know, the twins are, you know, especially Mandrell are interesting pieces. I don't know if they're like, you know, first round picks, but they're guys who look like they're on track to be. Yeah, like they look like they're on track to be like real contributors, real starters for you. Kevin Wynn has had some nice moments, right? And those are guys at premium positions who look like they are, you know, potential difference makers. If you get Tommy back for, let's say, about $1 million, right? Because he's not an NFL prospect, and you know, we've said that. I know some other shows kind of entertain that crap, but like he's not. He can't really throw. So at least not at the pro level. If you get him back for like $1 million, that's a pretty good cost savings over like what you would have to spend in the portal to bring in a real passer. I mean, you're probably saving if you pay him about $1 million. A good Miami paid Beck like, you know, well more than 3. I don't know if they actually paid him 4, but like I'm pretty sure it's over 3. So like you're saving $2 million there. You got Wynn and the Desir twins. You go out, you get another nice D-line piece. Those guys being a year older probably helps you a lot. Rawls can't go pro yet, right? Like you have some interesting pieces to where I do think Tony White is a good coach. Maybe the second year in the system with some more veteran growth among some of those guys, you could paint the picture like they could be somewhat respectable next year. Offensively, you pretty much got to portal it again, I think, with the exception of Tommy and Chroma, right? Deuce is gone. Who else is back who you actually want back?
You'll have
Danzy's back, right? Yeah.
Get something out of Elijah Moore in the back half of this season and maybe LaWayne McCoy. I mean, you could have 3 nice pieces at wide receiver in that sense, but you would still probably need, because it doesn't seem like anybody from high school is ready on the offensive line. You're probably looking at 4 or 5 more starters straight out of the portal, which is, I feel like the ceiling in that sense is always average. Like you're never going to have an above average offensive line when that is your philosophy for the offensive line.
Like who portaled the best offensive line this year? Probably Oregon. And they still gave up 6 sacks yesterday at home to Indiana, right? You know, like that's hard to do. It's a position you got to recruit well out of high school. You know, we know that they missed on all their top choices for offensive line coach. You know, and they end up with Herb Hand. A lot of guys like Herb Hand. He's a nice dude, but like I don't think he's a killer on the recruiting trail. If they wanted him, they could have had him immediately. And we know
Penn
they went
State
after
and Texas let him walk for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like, look, I mean, he's a nice enough dude, but ultimately, I don't know they're actually building much there on the offensive line. My point is, do I think you're building towards something? No, I don't. Do I think that it is a good idea to keep some of these young pieces around, invest in them, portal around it, and let Mike sink or swim in 2026 with what looks like a really hard schedule anyway? Yeah. So I think if you bring in another guy here, unless he's going to take his like whole team like Signetti from James Madison did to Indiana, which is not a likely thing. That's actually really hard to find. And I don't know what team that would be right now. Like, I mean, USF got pretty dump truck by Miami. If you go Lesh, bring USF, like that's not really going to work. I don't think. I don't think anybody you bring in here is going to be better than Mike for 26 long term for sure. I think everybody's pretty out on this experiment, but I don't know that firing him right now makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I would assume they won't fire him until Doak is 35,000 people for a game and the local businesses are being negatively impacted. At that point, they're going to have to make a decision. But I feel like until we get to that point, it's just he's a dead man walking, right? Like we know that he isn't the long-term answer, but it's just waiting until they can justify the buyout.
Yeah, I think he still keeps the locker room. It sucks because I genuinely do think that he has the leadership, but it seems like the leaders aren't on the same page, which is a tough watch, and they're not able to corral the rest of these guys. But I do think that we have leaders, so I think because of that, he still keeps the locker room. But as far as one of some of these recruits that we're trying to get and we're trying to make sure we bring in, if I'm a recruit and I'm seeing that there's some issues and there's some volatility going on at the organization, Norvell's going to have to do everything in his power to make this look as good as possible. Like, just make it look solid, because I would still be more than happy to go to that university. I just need it to be somewhat stable, because I would love to, if I know that this is what makes sense for me and what the coaches that want to develop me and everything like that. There's got to be some sort of grounding to where the players that I'm going to play with, I know that they're not all jumping into the portal. Like, there's something to actually go to, and that's going to be Norvell's biggest feat right now. Is going to try to hopefully hold on to the class that we have and be able to hopefully build on to some of that. But we got to look relatively like we have our crap together. And it's going to be a little bit difficult, but I think that plays, and that's not as hard if he can keep the locker room. If he can keep the locker room, which I think he still has, and the reason why I think he still has it is because I think Tommy holds himself really accountable. He holds himself really accountable to a lot of things, and if that's the case, and he's not throwing blame, which I don't think he is behind the scenes, he will keep it as long as Tommy is in with him.
But okay. Why the hell do they kind of look like that against Pitt then? If you think Tommy's a good leader, I don't think he's a good leader. I think he says some good things in the media, but like, there's no way they're holding themselves accountable in practice. Come out and look like that against Pitt.
Yeah.
So holding yourselves accountable. So being first of all, being a coach for these 18 to 22-year-olds are extremely difficult, because though they're top athletes, they'll get away with whatever you let them with. So Tommy being like a good leader and holding his guys accountable to making sure that they're being assignment sound, going to workouts, doing all this stuff is one thing. That's a whole nother situation versus Tommy just being in the ears and having them like him and having them believe that he's going to go to practice and try and do those things. And if that can stay intact, Norvell will stay tethered to what's going on, because again, I do think Tommy holds himself accountable, as well as the rest of them want to go to the league. So it's at least try to aspire to do that.
Would you go with some type of youth movement, bud?
But who are you benching? Like, and what example are you setting? I used to advocate for this.
For the example, I'm thinking to try to help hold that class together, right? If I play some of these high school kids, at least I have something to continue to sell on the trail, which they don't have right now. You put some of these portal guys on the bench and play some of these younger guys, and you're going to take the lumps anyways. But at least you can go, look, we're trying to build for 2026, and you can be a part of this. Look at these guys I have on the field that are going to be with you for the next 2 or 3 years. So I don't think you're getting – we kind of touched on it earlier in the week that I don't think you hit a lot of home runs in this portal class to begin with. You had like 6 that you would say were actual successes, and then you had a lot of incompletes and or trending towards a bust. I think those and/ors, I would start to like limit their reps and try to
find, Medley. You would not play Medley anymore.
I would try to get Simmons and Daniels and a TK.
James Williams. You're probably gonna need to cut him in the offseason.
Right,
he can't play for you.
I would get Amari as many snaps as possible with the Desirs. I would try to go. What is that? LeJesse Harold, maybe find some of these guys, give them some freaking reps. Like, it can't hurt you at this point. You're already 3-3, and every goal you had for the season's basically gone outside of trying to make a bowl. But if you want to try to sell something on the trail and hold on to this class, that might be his only way. Otherwise, this class is going to trend negatively the more losses you take, and you're going to wind up with.
I'm not worried about this recruiting class at all.
You're not?
No, man. Like, I think you're just trying to figure out when's the right time to pull the plug, man. Any money you're spending needs to be spent in the portal to like soften next year, and then you make the move. I don't think that they really get out of this.
Okay.
I don't care about this stuff. Like, the high school recruiting class is not something I'm concerned with right now.
Okay.
It's just not. And I don't think the staff,
that's the problem. The staff has never cared about the high school.
No, they've never given good effort in that regard.
Regardless of who's on the staff.
All right, I got to jump. We'll review the game more on Monday and maybe figure out some positive building blocks or something. But it is what it is. I will see you guys.
All right, man.
All right, peace.